What's up, everyone? Today we're going to talk about presentation of data with bar charts and histograms. So let's get into it. So we've talked about how discrete data and continuous data are different. And we also mentioned that continuous data, when we put it into a frequency table, should have intervals. That doesn't mean that discrete data can't also have class intervals. We usually use class intervals with discrete data when we have a large amount so that it can make the data more manageable. And that's exactly what we're going to do in example 1. So example 1, we have the number of cars passing a point between 8:45 a.m. and 9 a.m. was recorded over a 30-day period, and we're using intervals of 10 to make a frequency table. All right, so to do that, I'm looking through my data first, and I'm seeing that I have one single digit as a 9. Also seeing that my highest number is a 52, so I need to go from 9 to 52. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to go in intervals of 10 from 0 to 9. Keep in mind that is still an interval of 10 because 0's included. And then 10 to 19, etc. That being said, you could also make your intervals different. If they don't give you intervals, obviously you have the freedom to choose whatever interval of 10 you wanted to go to. So you could go from 9 to 18 and then 19 to 28 or however you wish. So now to complete my frequency table, I'll go through my numbers and just say how many cars I have for each of these intervals. All right, I've gone through my data. So to give you an example, I had one car that was between 0 and 9. I had 5 cars between 10 and 19. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on and so forth. So the point of making a frequency table with your discrete data with those class intervals is to be able to make a bar chart, which is IB speak for a bar graph, also known as a column graph. It's lots of different names. But a bar graph in general, or a bar chart in general, is a vertical column graph which can be used to display groups of discrete data. So bar charts are for discrete data. Very major distinction between this and histograms, which we'll talk about later, is that there is space between the columns. And the point of them is that these graphs give a visual comparison of the frequencies. So continuing example 1, we're making a bar chart of the car data from slide 4. I'm going to quickly copy over my frequency table just so I can easily compare them. Okay, so when you're making any kind of chart or graph in IB, or really just in general, you need to do a couple things before you just start plotting points, technically. You need to give your, in this case, your bar chart a title. So I can say as simple as cars passing a point. We need to scale and label both the X and Y axes. So my label for my X axis could be number of cars or my car intervals. And my y-axis is going to be my frequency, but instead of just saying frequency, because that could be for any information, to make it more related to this specific problem, I'm going to say number of cars per class or per interval. So that way it's more related to this specific problem. So now actually labeling my X and Y, or I'm sorry, scaling my X and Y axes, it's up to you, and it's up to the amount of data that you have and the type of graph that you're given. So I could choose to make just one block each interval, but I think this is scaled out enough or spaced out enough that I can do 2 blocks. So I'm going to say this is my 0 to 9. Sorry, this to this is my 0 to 9. Remember to leave space because this is a bar chart. Here to here is going to be my 10 to 19. And I'll just do that throughout the rest of my x-axis. Not the prettiest, so I apologize, but hopefully that's clear to where each interval is. Maybe if I do this, that'll help. So then along my y-axis, remember that's my frequencies. So I know I need to be able to go at as high as 10. So if I count up the scale, or if I count up the y-axis, there are 20 blocks or 20 squares. So that means I can, or I do have enough room to do each 2 as 1. And again, similar to how we created the intervals, when it's so open, it's really your choice. You could have squished them all down and squished all these in too and had it be super small. I like to space things out just so it's a little bit easier to see. And then all we're doing, I know we've done this before in other math classes, is we're taking that frequency and just making it visual. So between 0 and 9, I had 1 car. So I'm drawing that bar up to 1 between 0 and 9. We usually at least scribble it in. You don't have to fully shade it in, but at least scribbling it in so that it's easier to tell on the graph paper. For 10 to 19, I had 5. So I'm going to go all the way up to 5. Ooh, hopefully you can draw a straight line, unlike me. And then again, scribbling it in, even if it's just lightly or vaguely, just so it's easier for us to tell. And then we'll continue doing that for the other 4 intervals. All right, so our completed bar chart, again, you're just taking the frequency table and just making it visual. Couple things to note. Number one, if for whatever reason they gave you a question like this on an IB exam, in general, they usually have rulers available for you, or we recommend you bring one to an IB exam just for any kind of graphs. And number two, this is usually more helpful for your internal assessment, depending on what you do for it, just to display all of your data accurately.